How does everyone feel about the animation?
And I also
pretty damn good.
Either-
I've seen worse, but I have seen better.
Okay, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Like there's times where it's really fucking stylized and it's badass. Like I think it's one of the scenes that stuck with me the longest, even though it was just kind of like a throwaway scene. It was the very beginning where there's the guy there's 10 dudes, they're like fucking cops or whatever, and he like warps around all 10 of them and shoots each of them in the back of the head. Like that was like cool as fuck. And like there's things like that stick with me. Like I think the art style is like fucking like an 8.5 out of 10. Like it's fucking insane.
That's what I said. I think to piggyback off what you're saying, Cheyenne, is I think the style of it is so like I think the animation is good. It's not like the Demon Slayer movie animation.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is nothing is Demon Slayer, which is really annoying that Demon Slayer even exists at this point because everything that's animated the rest of history is going to be compared to that anime because of how exceptional it is. So as far as like,
I mean, I gotta watch that. I don't really know what the fuck it is, but I gotta.
It just looks beautiful. It's the most beautiful anime you will ever see in your life. So it is outrageous. But go ahead, Kenny.
The animation isn't Demon Slayer, but I think the animation is good. But then aside from that, I think the style is so clean. Like I love the style of the entire show. For example, you mentioned with the cops and like that slow motion. Essentially, he was using the Sandy, and then we get to see that effect throughout the series because
a lot. David. It's almost every episode.
But another thing is just I really love. I think it's episode 1 when he first starts seeing Lucy and like the way they he kind of like sees her hair and you just see like her hair on a black screen. Like the way they did some of that weird stuff, I thought was cool. We're like,
you're right. I remember the first time you see Lucy, you don't even know who she is. She doesn't have a name. She's not a character yet, but he just notices her. Her aesthetic, her animation, everything about that was very beautiful to me. And I don't use that word loosely. Like I really like when things are just aesthetically pleasing to the eyes. And to piggyback off of what you're saying about Lucy in particular, where I think the animation is like strongest is in all of the little love scenes between David and Lucy's, particularly the first one they had on the moon is fucking so good looking to me. Like I just really liked the first time where they had that fake moon landing. And
that was cool.
Even the helmets, how the helmets are reflective, and you can see it's like the helmets are CG basically. They look like they're not even animated, like they're just full on CG helmets. That whole thing where they kind of hug each other, and she talks about how she really wants to go to the moon one day, and like she hugs up on him. I really love that shot, and that shot's used in a lot of wallpapers. If you just type in Cyberpunk Edgerunner wallpapers and stuff like that, like it's clearly one of the like more iconic scenes of the entire thing. But I will say, as much as I loved those like lovey-dovey moments where it's like very cinematography, like all about that. When I was first watching it, I'm gonna be honest, episode 1, I was staring at it and I was kind of like, this doesn't look like a 2022 anime to me. Like it kind of just like a step down from like a lot of things that I've been seeing recently.
So that's kind of something I liked about it, is it felt old. Like something about it felt old, but to me in a good way. Like I really enjoyed
nostalgic almost
the old feeling of it. Yeah. Like
what I was gonna say about that is episode 1, I was looking at it like this doesn't look that good to me, and that was my brain comparing it to what I had recently watched, which is like VV Fluoride's Eye Song, Demon Slayer, like all of these crazy looking anime, right, that are all 2022, and like every studio is going ham. And so as I was watching, I was like, oh, this doesn't look that good. And then as I kept watching it, as I'm getting through the episodes, I get to like episode 3 and I'm used to it now. And I start to realize like this actually just looks good. It's just that it's very stylized, right? Like like people who see something cell shaded and they're like, oh, that doesn't look good to me. But then after you deal with cell shaded something like a game that's cell shaded for a while, you start to appreciate it for what it is. Like you start to like it, like Tales of Symphonia or like
it's like everybody's introduction to cell shading is probably Wind Waker, and like everybody they're like, what the fuck's going on with that game? It's really weird. But then you're like, wow, this is an amazing art style.
After a while, you start
Wind Waker aged really well in terms of graphics, I think.
Yeah.
So I feel like the longer I watched Edgerunners, I started to fall in love with the animation because I realized this is like a very, very style. Like a lot of things that they do, for example, like Kenny mentioned, every time he used the Sandy, that effect, I got used to like just seeing that effect. The cyber psychosis when the eyes start shaking.
The cyber psychosis looks so cool. Another thing on the Sandy, one of the scenes that I thought was awesome is there's like an android that also seems to have Sandy equipped. So it's like after the little time skip, I think it's like episode 6, And so he's going and he's fighting this guy, and he's like in his slow motion mode. And then the robot is able to react to him in slow motion. And so you see him like jump over the robot's head and like try to shoot him in the back, and it's all in slow motion. And then they kind of zoom it out and then show you it in real time. And it's just like 3 frames, but it looks so cool.
Yeah, I remember that. I thought
really
that was cool too, actually.
Yeah, so animation I think is actually fine. It might be, again, to people who are used to just watching current anime and stuff like that, at first you might look at it and be like, this is not exactly it. But I think that if you just continue watching it, you'll slowly start to appreciate like some of the things they do. Again, it's not like, it will never be Demon Slayer, but most things aren't. So if Demon Slayer is a 10, right, and like, I don't know, something really bad, like a lot of anime also at the same time are just not very well animated. But like, let's say Demon Slayer is a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. I would say that this is probably like an 8 for me. Like, I think it actually looks really nice. And the longer it went on, I really started to like it.
In terms of the animation.
Just like animation, just like how things look and just how fluid. I always look at how fluid things move too. Like how like people's like the choreography on the fights, like when they punch or when they kick, like how does that actually look? Is it just still frame? Because you know how, I don't know if you ever seen an anime called Sayuki, but I used to love it. But now when I watch Sayuki and Get Backers now, they don't age well because their fights are just them. They'll punch and it'll just be like a still animation.
Kenny got me in the Sayuki back when we were like fucking like 13, man. I was like,
I love
obsessed with Sayuki.
But every fight scene is just like it's a still image,
like 7 frames.
It's a still image on like a line background. It's like the zoom lines in the background and a still image. That's every fight scene.
It's bad,
so I always look for stuff like that, like to see if they cheapened out on the animation, because I always think about like what's the budget. You can tell what the budget is as soon as they start using too many stills. It's like, yeah, this is some bullshit.
Real quick, I think it was maybe like episode 1 where I didn't even know what the fuck the Sandef scan.
It was episode. I think it was episode 2. No, it was 1. It was 1. And it was 1. And it was the scene where.
Froze.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
It was like he was looking at it or something, or it showed his back. I don't remember. But I thought the anime froze. I was like, "Yo,
holding his mom's jacket with the Sandevistan like taped to the back of it, and it was like barely even a slow zoom in, and it was just like a 20 frame scene. And
dude, it was like 20 seconds. It was like, dude, I legit, I was like, yo, did your thing freeze? Because me and Bill watched it together. I was like, yo, did it freeze for you? And I was like, yo, they really milked that still frame. Do you guys remember that?
I did. It happened again, like a few episodes later.
They did it again.
It was staring at David's face, like his eye, for like.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
47 seconds.
It was so long. It was like, what is this there?
So how do you guys feel about the animation overall?
I think, I mean, I don't watch too many animes, so I can't really like reference, but I would give it like an 8. Like I've seen some like clips of some animes, and like some things are like really bad. Like I remember one scene from, I'm not sure if it was like the Berserker movie or the anime, but it's him like walking away from somebody, and it's just like this really like jagged, skippy thing, and it looks really bad.
Yeah.
So
for me, I think for me, it's like it was like inconsistent. Like I enjoyed it, but I wasn't like, there were like outside of some of the stylized moments. Like I was like, oh, that was cool, that was slick, whatever.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. The art style, I'm like, I really enjoyed because it is like Cyberpunk, the franchise or whatever. But I wasn't really drawn in one direction. Like I was more like at middle of the road. Like, like it was all right. Like
my favorite aspect of like the whole anime was how close they stuck with the universe.
Yeah.
Like. And like stuck with the universe, stuck with the game, like the hacking straight from the game.
Yeah,
like all the HUD elements straight from the game. The
like
background soundtrack straight from the game.
See, I knew nothing about. I've never played the game, so for me, what you guys are saying is actually really pleasing to hear that they actually like did a good adaptation. Because I was wondering, and I'm glad we have Bill and Cheyenne on this podcast episode, but I was wondering about how well they did as far as a game comparison.
Here's
like spot on.
So here's this: as someone who didn't play the game, but I watched Cheyenne stream it, and I've watched like some other clips of it, and then I also kind of saw some stuff after watching the anime. I think they captured the feel of the game a lot, the characters and like the feel of Night City. But even down to like what Bill was saying with HUD elements and stuff. Rebecca, the character Rebecca, the little girl. her apartment that you see in the anime is in Cyberpunk 2077. Like, you can go in that apartment, and it's like, it looks exactly like the exact setup of her apartment is from the video game that you see her in.
That's
in the
really
anime.
dope. I want to say something about Rebecca,
I know
too.
David's apartment, the first apartment that he has where he like constantly has to crawl in like the fucking air conditioning vent or whatever. That is just the first apartment that you get in Cyberpunk, like to a T. Like, it is the exact layout.
Oh, that's so amazing because he's
so it's like like you know how like the TV room
real
is kind
quick,
of like
the building he lives in is Mega Building H10, I think, and it's actually that apartment is just straight up V's apartment. Like after
V is the character that you play as.
The game takes
Cyberpunk.
place a year later, so it's like it's that apartment, you get it.
That's
So I was going to say about Rebecca, speaking of her, because we were talking about animation and just like a lot of the things and how things look and how much they compare to the video game and stuff like that. As far as animation goes, that scene where I think David comes to her apartment and she opens the door with a gun to his head. And like the way that shot is, where she's basically naked, like she's in basically a bra and panties. She has the gun up to his head, and she's like, "Hey, yeah." She's talking to her brother. She's like, "Yo, dickhead, this is your fucking guy. You're supposed to be like chaperoning him. Like, I'm not doing this. I'm not dealing with him." And the way she just like has the gun to his head, so gangster looking, like this little ass girl. But the pose that she has, like in his face, is just that shot. That's when I started to, because that's really early on. But that shot is when I started to be like, okay, I'm really liking the way this looks. Like just the way, like the shot was kind of like the camera was low. Even though this is an animated thing, it's kind of shot from the ground up, like looking up at her, and it makes her look tall because she's really small. But it made her look really tall, the way they stretched out her body and stuff like that. Like just that cinematography stuff, I just really like it. I appreciate that.
I also want to quickly say, because you mentioned how she was like almost naked. This is something else that I really liked about the series, and I think is very true to the cyberpunk aesthetic and feel. I like how free and open they were with nudity in the series, but and even during the sexual moments, it didn't feel sexy. It just felt normal. Like, you get what I'm trying to say? Like me, disclaimer, I'm a massive pervert. I love, you know what I mean? Love all that stuff. But when I watched this, I never got like horny or anything. Like,
I didn't get the vibe that it was trying to sell me sex.
Because it was just so normalized.
Yes, I didn't think of it as
I like that too.
Yeah, it didn't feel like they were trying to get me on some HBO shit where HBO
of all the things. My bad, I cut you off. Of all the shit that I think like the number one thing I probably like the most is that like I think it's like it's not just like there's none of that like Puritan American good old fashioned bullshit. It's like people just fuck. Like me and Bill were saying, like that's us. You will go outside. There's a guy with a fleshlight on his dick outside. Like me and Bill were just like that would be us. We would be the guys outside getting their dick sucked by a fucking fleshlight in the middle of the staircase. Like it's like that's their drug. It's like some guys shoot like
I do like
cyber heroin. Other guys have flashlights on their dick outside.
Yeah, so I appreciate that because it really put you in, because like you said, it doesn't stray away from it. It's not like this Puritan pure thing, but also even though there's a lot of nudity in the show, it never feels gratuitous. It never feels like it's trying to get you to jerk off or anything. Like it feels really natural in the setting, and I really like that.
People just get naked in front of each other when they're like comfortable or whatever, and when they're also just trying to blatantly entice someone. Like Lucy had a crush on David pretty early on because he's so innocent, he's so different from what she's used to. She's used to the city, Night City. Hey guys, if you like this clip, we have full video versions of our podcast episodes available on the IMNerd Patreon, as well as exclusive content.
If you'd like to listen to our full podcast episodes or find us on any other social media platforms, you can do so by clicking the link tree below.